Well, hello, my friends, and welcome once again to the show. It is Thursday, October 30th. Several things I'd like to discuss here. We got some Kash Patel and Charlie Kirk cover-up news. We've got Donald Trump is a massive failure on Iran news. We've got some Mellon Head Thune video I'd like to play for you. I've got a comment on that I want to make about rural voters because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what's going on in rural America. I've got some douchebag Ted Cruz stuff. And finally, I want to play a little bit of video from the grieving widow. So why don't we begin with FBI Director Kash Patel covering up information related to the murder of Charlie Kirk. So here we have a headline. Kash Patel shuts down Charlie Kirk foreign intelligence probe in explosive feud with Trump's counter-terror chief. Let me read just a little bit of this. FBI Director Kash Patel crushed efforts by Tulsi Gabbard's closest advisor to see if a foreign power was involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. The head of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, analyzed FBI files to determine whether Kirk's alleged killer received assistance from a foreign power. Gee, I wonder why he would even think that. I'm not insinuating anything there, by the way. I'm not saying that a foreign power was involved, nor am I attempting to imply that. I'm just saying, kind of weird. I thought that this was just one crazy, Republican-hating weirdo in Utah who was acting completely alone. Why would the head of the National Counterterrorism Center be analyzing FBI files to see if a foreign power was involved in murdering Charlie Kirk? That's just a little weird, don't you think? Anyway, back to the article. Kent's investigation alarmed Patel, who believed the counter-terror chief was overstepping by interfering with an ongoing FBI investigation. And why is it ongoing? I thought the whole thing was wrapped up with a fucking bow on top of it. Including bullets with all kinds of anti-trans and anti-Charlie Kirk or anti-fascist or whatever the fuck they said was on these casings. I thought this was the most perfectly tidy evidentiary case of murder in the history of the FBI. I mean, it was perfect. The rifle, it was so perfect that the gunman left the rifle, which he apparently reassembled, as if we're to believe what we're being told, after he walked onto campus with the rifle disassembled in his backpack, climbed on top of the roof where he reassembled it, took a shot, then disassembled it again, put it back into the backpack, jumped off the roof, went into the woods after having just murdered someone, and then took the time to reassemble the weapon for the FBI and then lay it nicely to be found by the FBI on a towel. Wasn't that nice? So nice of them. And, he left those bullets with the engravings. I mean, it was just perfect. And all those text messages, those really strangely worded text messages that, no one actually talks like that, especially a 22-year-old. Where he admits to virtually every single aspect of this crime and his motive and everything. It was perfect. As I said, it had a fucking bow on it. So why in the world would this National Counterterrorism Center chief be even looking at the possibility that a foreign nation was behind his murder? Just very, very strange. Anyway, so it pissed off Patel. Kirk was shot in the throat. There was one other part of this I wanted to read. After Patel discovered Kent had gone through FBI case material related to the Kirk killing, a tense White House meeting was held to discuss the matter. A roundtable meeting between Patel, Kent, Gabbard, Vice President J.D. Vance, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and senior DOJ officials was held at the White House. Kent told the administration officials that he was granted access to the FBI files by a low-ranking agency official. Where's this one that I want? Oh, here we go. Trump administration officials were worried that Kent's probe into foreign interference could provide ammunition. I wonder if they meant that as a pun. To Robinson's defense lawyers, who could then argue more than one suspect was involved in Kirk's murder. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. So instead of hunting down all possible leads, and again, why did this guy think that maybe I should look into this? Was it just a pure fishing expedition? Or did he have reason to investigate whether a foreign power was involved in Kirk's murder? I honestly don't know. Not implying anything. I'm just saying the guy's digging around. He's looking when we're told that it was just this guy acting alone and it was a slam dunk airtight case. So why would you even be looking into this possibility? And Trump administration officials wanted to shut that down, and they did shut it down because they don't want to provide any ammunition to Robinson's legal team. Very strange. Very, very strange. Would there be ammunition potentially found that would allow Robinson's lawyers to argue, hey, there were some other people involved in this? I don't know. Just saying. You know, the DOJ, the FBI, they're supposed to be interested in the truth. I know, quaint concept, doesn't really apply anymore with Trump's DOJ and with, you know, to the FBI with Kash Patel at the head. But that's supposed to be what they are interested in. The truth. Uncovering all the information, all the facts. And you go where the facts lead you. Apparently not. We got to shut this down. If there's nothing to it, let this guy look into it and then say, you know what, there's nothing to it. But no, we don't want to know. Shut it down. Very, very strange. Okay. So we got that going on. Then we have this from the Jerusalem Post. Let me move this over a bit. There we go. Iran rebuilding ballistic missile manufacturing capabilities with China's support. Huh. Isn't that strange? Iran has purchased over 2,000 tons of sodium perchlorate since the 12-day war, enough to produce fuel for over 500 ballistic missiles with nuclear capabilities. I thought a couple things here. I thought Iran was no longer a problem. Trump dropped a few bombs on them, declared ultimate victory, and I thought that was it. I thought Iran was bombed back into the Stone Age. Now, if you'll recall, at the time of the bombing, it was reported that, those bunker-busting bombs didn't wipe everything out because they had buried those facilities deep, and we apparently didn't completely annihilate them. Of course, Trump shot those down. Oh, another pun. Shot down those reports as fake news. Doesn't want you to think that that's true. He wants you to believe only that he was 100%. And remember that he framed it as, if you even questioned whether or not the underground facilities were completely destroyed, then you were trash talking the United States military. That's what you were doing. That's how he framed it. And so that quickly shut down all reporting on this. Nobody raised it anymore because they didn't want to be branded as anti-military. But that reporting did exist. And here on a day, as I said, I'm talking to you here now on October 30th. It's Thursday. On the day where Donald Trump just announced the greatest trade deal ever reached with China. Which is a complete and utter fucking joke, as most things that this buffoon does. And by the way, if you want to see my thoughts and my reporting on this ridiculous bullshit China trade deal, where Donald Trump, begged Xi Jinping to bail him out from the problem that he created. And of course, Xi took him to the cleaners, gave Donald Trump, the ability to come back and tell his mindless cult that it was a great victory when it's a complete joke. Anyway, I did a longer video today just on that topic on the main channel, so please go over to the Romano Report to check that out. The name of the video is "He's a Genius," or something like that. What a genius, he's a genius? I don't really remember. Something along those lines. Anyway, on the day that Donald Trump, who he told us repeatedly over the last 24 hours, he has this great relationship with Xi, that Donald Trump is completely in control of everything. He's playing 4D chess as always. Here, China is actually working against Trump's position on Iran by just a couple months after we bombed Iran to try to take out their nuclear program. China is now helping Iran rebuild that program, helping them with their nuclear missile program. I didn't hear the orange buffoon address this at all in his tweet, where he was claiming this great victory in this trade deal with China. Very strange, that. Okay, so we have that. We have China helping Iran to rebuild their nuclear program after Trump declared ultimate victory. And, let's move on to Mellon Head Thune. Here is John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader. So he would be the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. You don't hear too much from this guy because he's not a very effective communicator, as you'll see. But he got himself real riled up today. He obviously took some acting lessons, and he pretended to be very, very upset. And he took to the floor of the United States Senate to blame Democrats for the government shutdown. So why don't we listen to Mellon Head here? It's the least we can do, since he obviously has been prepping and practicing this little acting that he's going to engage in here. He's been obviously practicing this for quite some time. So let's, my dogs are barking. Let's listen to him.
And we've tried to do that 13 times. And you voted no 13 times. This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. And you all have just figured out, 29 days in, that, there might be some consequences. There are people who run out of money. Yeah, we're 29 days in. And they've done their best to make sure that a lot of these programs are funded. But at some point, the government runs out of money.
Okay, enough with this, the acting here. But he's really put a lot of work into it. I mean, he's got the hand motions going. And if you'll notice at one point, he does a George W. Bush swagger. Okay, and I'm going to play it back here. He turns towards where the camera is, puts his arms out, and he does the little George W. Bush swagger. So let's take a look at that, because I found that particularly funny.
This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. And you all have just figured out,
there we go, right there,
29 days in, that, there might be some consequences.
Not very perceptible, but you can't put it past me.
Yeah, we're 29 days in.
I picked up on it.
And they've done their best.
So, about, let me, stop, shut the fuck up. Okay, there we go. Now, for Mellon Head, he, of course, relies on the fact that MAGA voters are fucking stupid. By the way, I haven't pushed the mug in a while. I'll probably do more so at Christmas, but this is still available. Fuck Trump. I mean, can't beat the message, right? So, Mellon Head Thune here needs MAGA voters to be stupid. And of course they are. He needs them not to understand how anything actually works, which of course they don't. Because what Mellon Head doesn't want them to know is that they could reopen the government on their own without a single Democratic vote anytime they wanted to. All they have to do is set aside the stupid filibuster rule, which is not a constitutional requirement. It's not a legal requirement. It's just a made-up rule of the Senate, which they can set aside anytime they want and which they have set aside many times in the past. So the government is shut down because they want the government shut down. That's it. And really, it's not they. It's one man. It's Donald Trump wants the government shut down. I'm sure that if, it were up to Mellon Head, he would reopen the government. I'm sure if it were up to Grinder Mike, he would reopen the government. But the government is closed because Donald Trump wants it to be closed. First and foremost, because as long as the government is closed, it gives Grinder Mike the excuse not to call the House back into session. And he has said as much. Unless and until we have an agreement with the Democrats to reopen the government, he's not going to call the House back into session. Why? Because Donald Trump doesn't want the House back in session. He doesn't care about the Senate. You'll notice the Senate's in session. It's the House that's out of session because Donald Trump wants them out of session. Because as soon as they come back in, Grinder Mike is, his excuse for not swearing in Congresswoman-elect Grijalva, it evaporates. It's the government shutdown that is his excuse. And so, as long as it's shut down, he doesn't have to swear her in, and then she won't be the 218th signature on the discharge petition to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. And that is the primary reason why Donald Trump wants the government shut down. To cover up his involvement with his best friend, Jeffrey Epstein, and what the two of them did to children. That's what this is all about. Now, there's ancillary benefits to Trump, which he doesn't care as much about. He cares predominantly about the Epstein cover-up. But there's people around him who desperately want to use the government shutdown as an excuse to slash programs and fire people and do all these things that really that are not legal for them to do, but they're saying that, well, because the government shut down, I guess we can do that. People like Russ Vought and Stephen Miller, they're having a ball. Trump doesn't really give a shit. He's certainly not opposed to any of that, but that's not his primary concern. Okay, so thank you, Mellon Head, for your impassioned speech there that you've clearly put a lot of practice into. And again, the gesticulating about with the arms, I mean, kudos to his acting coach. Very, very worth, it was well worth the money, I'm sure, from whatever Mellon Head had to dish out. Okay, the next one. Actually, you know what? I'm already going long. Looking at the clock here, I got something I got to be at. So I'm not going to be able to hit all of these things. I'm sorry. So let me do this real quick. Here is one of the biggest douchebags on the planet, Ted Cruz. Listen to this, jackass.
I am right now calling on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg. Judge Boasberg put his robe down, stood up, and said, "Sign me up to be part of the partisan vendetta against 20% of the Republicans in the Senate." That is a dereliction of duty.
Okay, as I said, I don't have a lot of time, but when you hear Ted Cruz really angry and banging his head and using this voice, that's his "I'm running for president and I want to win the Fox News primary" voice. When he gets really angry, that's directed to be played as clips on Fox News, because that's where you win the Republican primary for president. You win it on Fox News. Okay, you don't win it on the campaign trail, not anymore. You win it on Fox News, and this is how you win it on Fox News. You make speeches like this where you're really angry. You call for impeaching judges, which isn't going to fucking happen, but your voters are too stupid to realize that. And you say that weaponization this and weaponization that and going after their political opponents, when that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. You do all that because that plays well. And, you write, your staffers write these little speeches for you so that they're designed to be cut up into 15, 20-second bites to be played on repeat on Fox News. So that's what he's doing here. But he wants to impeach here Judge Boasberg because it has come out. Of course, we knew this anyway. So they're pretending that this wasn't known before. But the Jack Smith investigation got records, phone records and things like that from Republican members of Congress while he was investigating Trump for his January 6th related crimes. And they're saying that, this is illegal and all this stuff. It was signed by a judge, Judge Boasberg, based on a showing of probable cause that these people engaged in criminal activity as co-conspirators with Donald Trump. So the reason they had their phone records, I don't know if it was just I'm not sure for each of them if it was phone records or what, but they had certain records. They were being investigated because there was probable cause offered to a federal judge that these people engaged in crimes and that the things that they wanted to look at was likely to have evidence of those crimes. This is the way criminal investigations are conducted. These people are criminals. Ted Cruz is a fucking criminal. The rest of them are fucking criminals, which is why they were being investigated. Now, gotta go. One final thing I want to play for you. As you know, I am nothing if not compassionate. And when I see a fellow human being, particularly a widow who has recently suffered the loss of her husband, grieving, when I see that, it tugs at my heartstrings, and I cannot help but be personally moved by that. And so I was when I came across some video from a Turning Point USA event in which Erika Kirk appeared. Nothing says grieving widow like tight leather pants, entrance music, light shows, fake tears, and really, really bad acting. Am I right?